Today we're going to be having a topic discussion about that. That there is the Beaumont Tower at over 1,152 feet tall. That's about 352 metres for those of you who prefer metres. It's extremely tall, so I've had to come to basically the middle of nowhere to discuss about it. In today's video we're going to work out why it's here, why it's so important, and why it's been so important in the past. And as well, why it's still important to us now, on today's present day. While the structure still stands at 1,150 feet tall, Decca's though, the mast stood at 1,272 feet tall, or about 388 metres, making it the tallest structure in the whole of the entire United Kingdom. Those guywires that you see holding up the structure in 9 different places weigh over 80 tonnes. That's an enormous amount of weight, and let alone the concrete foundations that they must have had to use to make sure they're secure. That's how it's able to stand so much weather conditions over 60 years, and it still is standing strong. Planning permission for Beaumont Tower was granted in 1963 and was started construction in 1964, laying huge amounts of concrete into the ground to support the massive structure that we see behind us. By 1965, construction of the Beaumont Tower was complete, and by the 20th of December that year, it became in service. That now makes it over 60 years old. We're just in January, and what an epic structure it is to see on the landscape. It wasn't just built as a landmark, it was built because it had a purpose. And that purpose was for broadcasting television to multiple people and reaching far out places across the county. The television area that was broadcasting was black and white. Just imagine what I would look like in black and white on YouTube, or if YouTube was still black and white. But once it was built, it was able to broadcast television signals across the country. And since then, it has gone through many adaptations in its time. By 1970, television was changing forever, from the old black and white to colour television. A Peterborough Evening Telegraph article, dated Saturday the 31st of October 1970, reflects how transmitters like Beaumont were becoming central to the rollout of colour television. At this point, colour broadcasting was still just being introduced region by region. Reception of colour television depended highly where you were and what transmitters were giving you that signal. Beaumont Tower, of course, got it in 1970. Beaumont Tower didn't transmit at just a small amount of power. In fact, it went up to 500 kilowatt hours. That meant the signal could reach Lincolnshire, East Yorkshire, Northern Norfolk, and parts of Nottinghamshire. In fact, it still remains the main transmitter for cities like Hull and Lincoln. Now, Beaumont Tower didn't just have to adapt to colour television. In fact, it had to adapt to digital television. Who remembers the digital switchover? Well, it started here in 1998, running alongside analogue television for a good amount of time. But of course, in 2011, the old analogue television was switched off for good, and Beaumont Tower adapted once again. In 2020, it went through the 700 MHz clearance program. That means it had to reshuffle all of its signals to allow for not just digital television, which of course was Freeview and all that stuff, it also had to allow for FM radio as well as digital radio services. Now, of course, that meant it had to keep adapting. 60 years on, it's still doing exactly the job it was meant to do. For 60 years, Beaumont Transmitting Station has been quietly connecting people to news, entertainment, emergency broadcasts, radio, you name it, it's probably been doing it. But it's been doing it all without a fuss, sitting high on the Lincolnshire Wolds district area. Now, Beaumont Tower isn't somewhere you can actually visit. In fact, you can't even go anywhere near it. I'm in a lay-by on the side of a road, which is why I've probably heard more cars than I've ever heard before. But all I'm going to say, those guy wires look impressive. So next time you're driving through Lincolnshire and you spot that magnificent thing in the distance, you now know exactly what it is, why it's here, and why it's become so important for Lincolnshire as well as everyone around. So I've got one more thing to say. Don't forget to click the like button, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next topic discussion or on a daily vlog. Till then, bye bye. piece of gar... A piece of gar... Ugh. I get such a good time and then I to wipe my nose! That sounds like lorry, and it is. Boomix. Because it's cars and vans, vans and cars. Now, for decades, this structure wasn't actually just the 1000. By 1965, that structure was complete. And what a Why did you let it go? Because it fit my finger so. Was black and white. Just imagine what I'd look like in black and white on YouTube, or if YouTube was still black and white.